Renegade, what's up? It's Grace here, and this week I'm going to talk about the book of Mark. So if you've been following along, you would have seen that Caitlin and Justin talked about the book of Matthew, and I'm going into the next book. So it's Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. So today, talking about Mark. Mark is a really awesome book of the Bible, so it goes through parables that Jesus shares, which is really just I don't know how to say it, like stories that aren't like super clear to the point. There's stories that like have to make you think. He uses analogies and metaphors and all this awesome stuff. They're really fun to read. But so the beginning of Mark really goes through some parables and stuff, but in Mark 8 is where I really got a lot from. So it says Jesus begins to address who he is and all this stuff. He's talking to his disciples, so some of his closest followers, his closest friends that he's really going through a lot with. He's talking to them, and he asks them a question. He says, "Who do you say that I am?" And they just start answering him a little bit, and somebody says like, "Oh, you're the Son of God." And then there's just a lot of confusion because the disciples are thinking, "Oh, well, Jesus, when I'm following Jesus, he's this Son of God. He's this powerful man. So following him, I'm going to be famous. I'm going to be powerful. I'm going to have this super awesome seat right next to God on the throne," which, yes, those things can be true. But Jesus, what he was trying to do in this moment was reintroduce who he truly is. So yes, he's the Son of God. Yes, he's super powerful. Yes, he is so miraculous. He's so righteous. But he really talks about how following him is actually dying, carrying your cross, and living a life empty of pride, empty of yourself, and living for other people and loving other people. In Mark 10:45, it says, "The Son of Man did not come to be served, but to become a servant and give his life as a ransom for many." And so this idea to the disciples, they started to hear this and understand this, like, what? God, Jesus, you're so powerful. Yet you came to serve people, you came to love people. And Jesus was beginning to introduce this idea that, kind of like how they talked about in Matthew, this idea again of, yes, there's power and all these great things, but greater than all of that, we are called to serve somebody. We are called to serve our neighbor. We're called to love our neighbor. We're called to lay down our lives and surrender everything we are for the sake of the gospel, for the sake of Jesus, and for the sake of loving other people. So the disciples were a little bit confused on this because to them in society and just humanity, it's so natural for us to want to serve ourselves and live for ourselves and live for fame and live for all these big bright things. So it was something new to them to understand. And then Jesus in Mark, he was looking at my notes, but he started to introduce that his body is the embodiment of God's glory. And then he also introduced that coming soon he would suffer and die for his people to be saved. And so once again, the disciples are confused on this part. They're kind of confused on what's happening, what Jesus is talking about, because it's not what they expected the Messiah, the Son of God, to be. And then Mark ends, the final few chapters of Mark ends with the last week of Jesus' life. So he's going into town, he's doing these miracles, going into the temple, just doing a bunch of different stuff. Super awesome for the last week of his life. And so it's ending with that, and it ends with the Last Supper, what it means to really believe in Jesus and take part of eating his body or take part of drinking his blood, which is really just this act of remembrance for what he did for us. So all of that is talked about. And then one thing that like really stood out to me, which was super just crazy, and it kind of just ties in the beginning chapters of Mark. So at the end, when Jesus, he was taken by the soldiers, whatever, and he was crucified. So he was hung on a cross. And Jesus, he said his last words. And when he said his last words, the sky was dark and the atmosphere shifted and the earth literally shifted. And a Roman officer, he said, I'm gonna look at this just so I don't get it wrong. But so a Roman officer, he was standing there at the feet of Jesus, watching him be crucified, watching the sky go dark, everything changing. This Roman officer, a man that was an enemy of Jesus, a man that was punishing Jesus, a man that was against Jesus, he said this man was a son of God. And so it was so interesting to me that they let a Roman officer, somebody who hated Jesus, be the first one to verbally say in that book who Jesus was, to say his true identity, that he was the crucified Messiah and that he was the Savior. This man is the Son of God. It was a Roman officer, someone who was so far from Jesus, but yet when he died, his heart shifted and he's like, whoa, this is the Son of God. And so I was so encouraged by that. And so just today, before you go do anything else today, or maybe you want to do it tonight, but I want you to write down a couple questions for yourself. So the first question, okay, sorry, I wrote these down. Who do you say Jesus is? So like in the beginning of Mark, he asked his disciples, who do you say I am? Do you say I'm just somebody who has power? Do you say I'm just this man that nobody knows who I am? Who do you say I am? Not based off of other people, but based off of yourself. Am I the Son of God? Am I the Messiah, the Savior to you? Who do you say I am? The second question is, what do you think Jesus came for? So Jesus, he was the Son of God, the Messiah, but what makes him the Savior is that he was crucified and that he was resurrected. So what do you think Jesus came for? Who do you say Jesus is? And then also, I want you to be encouraged because, like I mentioned, the Roman officer, if you would have guessed out of all the people who would have had it right about Jesus' identity, I'm sure the last person we would have guessed is the person who hated Jesus the most, the person who crucified Jesus. His disciples should have known who he was. His disciples should have known the weightiness of his identity and his glory. But I want you to be encouraged today because I feel like sometimes we can be hard on ourselves when we're confused, when we question, when we don't understand. But really just take a moment and just allow Jesus to show you who he is, who his identity is, that he died for you. So it doesn't matter what you've done in your life. It doesn't matter what you're going to do. It doesn't matter who you are, where you are. It doesn't matter. What matters is the understanding of Jesus and the understanding of his act of salvation, his act of being crucified and dying for us and raising again. It doesn't matter what our title is. It doesn't matter how old we are, what our gender is. It doesn't matter any of those things. What matters is coming to know Jesus for who he is. So I love you guys. I hope you feel encouraged today. If you want to watch the rest of the video on Mark, we will link that below. Also, you still have some time to enter the giveaway for the AirPod Pros we're giving away. We're extending it through November. So if you want to enter the giveaway, do that. We'll see you next time. Love you guys.